So when you use paints through your airbrush, you might not always have brand new paint like this. Your bottle might look a little more like this. And when we take a closer look, you can see that there's chunky bits of paint like this. And this is just dried up paint from the edge of the bottle, which will in turn fall into your cup. This can be a major issue when airbrushing because this paint could get stuck in this airbrush nozzle, and you can see how fine that nozzle is. And that paint is plenty big enough to block up your airbrush and give you some headaches when you're trying to paint your artwork. In this video, I'm going to show you an easy way to prevent this from happening. So the way to stop dried paint like this interfering with the flow of your airbrush, I recommend that you strain your paint. I like to use these particular strainers, which are the 190 micron. They're a fine strainer, and they're just a paper disposable strainer. There's many different ones available, but I find this one works really well for airbrushing, and you can really see close up how fine that will strain your paint, and it will capture all of those contaminants before they end up in your color cup or bottle if you're using a siphon feed brush. So give whatever paint you're going to use a really good shake. So in this case, I'm using the really dried up red violet. Even though the lid is clogged up full of dried paint, there's still plenty of usable paint in there. So I'm going to go ahead and use my paper strainer and then pour the paint in through there. I like to lift it up a little bit from the airbrush cup. That way it all flows down nicely, whereas if you sit it on there, it can leak over the sides. But just please yourself, whichever method works best for you. Now you can see this is dripping through a lot slower because it hasn't been reduced or any thinner added. But the beauty is that I'm guaranteed not to get any of those dried up bits of paint in my color cup, and I know that my paint is going to flow at the optimal rate, and it's also going to help to prevent things like tip drying and other issues that may arise if you've got dried up or cloggy paint. And there you can see the contaminants that have been captured and not ended up in my color cup. So now that that paint has been strained, you can see how nicely it sprays through the airbrush. Got continuous flow, no intermittent, and you're also going to experience less tip drying. Even though tip drying will still occur, it's just going to be less likely to build up an immediate blockage because you know for a fact that the paint that you've put in your airbrush is nice and strained. You can see how nice and fine I can go, even with this wider eclipse, which runs a 0.35mm needle nozzle setup. So I think that you'd agree that using a simple strainer like this is going to save you a lot of issues when you are airbrushing. Keep that paint flowing nice and smoothly through your airbrush. That's super important. Now you can strain every single color that you use if you wish, and that is definitely going to help to keep your airbrush performing at its optimal level. Personally, I don't use strainers all the time. I probably should. It's totally up to you how much you want to implement this particular method. I like to use it predominantly when I'm using candy colors because I don't want to risk any contaminants in that particular paint. And I also use it when I'm doing extremely detailed artworks. I want to make sure that that paint is running 100%. Also keep in mind, you don't necessarily have to use this particular style of strainer. It's just my personal preference. There's many different products available on the market, and you can also use simple other techniques to strain your paint. I would love to hear your thoughts and what you use to strain your paint in the comments below. And until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.